September 20th, 2013. We're conducting this at the Lawrence County Country Club in Lawrenceville, Illinois. Coach Felling, where did you play high school and college basketball?
Well, that's been a long time ago, Billy, but I played at a small school about 7 miles east on Highway 40 at a place called Glenn High School. And
Glenn, Indiana.
Glenn, Indiana. There was just a stoplight there, and there was a gas station and a little grocery store, and that was about it. But I did go to Glenn, and there was about 105 in school in 4 grades, so it was a very small school. And I graduated in 1957, and I tell everybody that I graduated the top 30 in my class. And then until they asked, they said, well, how many was in your class? And I said, well, there was only 27, but I wanted to make sure 2 did move in, and I'd be a liar. So I did get out of there, and then my coach took me up to Indiana State and said, you're going to try out for the basketball team. So I did graduate in 1961 with from Indiana State University, and I did play, I lettered in both baseball and basketball at Indiana State. And and then I got my master's there in '63. So I wrapped up my education in Terre Haute, Indiana.
Tell us about the night you guarded Oscar Robertson.
Well, I didn't really, everybody got a chance to guard Oscar Robertson. No one really guarded him. He got 46 points that evening, and that was the first game. In fact, I remember we opened up the season with Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, and I think they beat us 46 points, and then and Oscar got 46, so everybody took a shot so they could say, but no one really guarded Oscar. I remember one thing about Oscar saying, oh, my feet are killing me. My feet are killing me, yet he'd just go down and get another bucket. So then we left out of there, and we came back and played Indiana University on Monday night, and they had Walt Bellamy and Jimmy Rail and that bunch, and they beat us, I think, 37. So we limped back into Terre Haute with 2 really bad defeats in the start of the season.
Were there any coaches that had a positive influence on your coaching, especially in your early years?
Well, yes. My first high school coach was a guy named Jack Williams, and what a very great guy he was, and not so much on X's and O's, but he just knew how to relate to kids. And right then, I knew when, at my freshman year in high school, that I was going to be a basketball coach, because I just thought it was so neat being able to coach young people and get them to buy into what you're wanting to do. But he was such a nice guy, and he was very much an influence. And then I did my student teaching in college with a guy named Howard Sharp from Terre Haute Gershmeyer, and of course he was a legend in Terre Haute. And obviously I took a lot of what he proposed and what he taught. And so, but again, you've got to make your own. You've got to make your own decisions, and you've got to make your own way of coaching. I don't think you can try to be somebody else.
Where was your first teaching and coaching stop, and tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my first stop after I graduated from Indiana State. My wife had a job in Maryville, and I couldn't get a job. I was going to go on up there and maybe get a job in the steel mills or somewhere. And I guess at her first teaching job at Maryville, she called me and she said there was a science job open. So I did have a major in science, and I went in, and so I taught general science in the 7th grade my first year. And then I moved to Maryville, Indiana, which is a very hotbed of basketball. And that was my first coaching job, and I coached freshman basketball. And that's where I met Tom Dockage, who is Danny Dockage's dad. And we had I met 4 or 5 good guys that we just continued to go in and watch the Chicago Packers and the Chicago Zephyrs. That's before they turned to be the Chicago Bulls. And then I had Greg Popovich on my freshman basketball team, and then it turns out that he is a 4-time NBA champion. So you just never know, and that was been 50 years ago. That was in 1963. So that was pretty much my first teaching experience.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about having Coach Popovich in your PE class.
Well, it wasn't my PE class, it was in my freshman health class. I saw, when I stepped out of the room for whatever reason, and it came back, and he was running around the room with this little gal chasing him. So apparently he had something of hers, and she was, so I just said, Greg, come on out. So I paddled him. And then, so he said, Coach, you're not gonna paddle me, are you? And I said, yes, I am. So I said, if there's anything, take anything out of your back pockets, and I'm gonna give you 3 whacks. So I'm sure that wasn't the best thing to do, but I don't know whether it certainly didn't hurt him. I didn't hit him that hard, because he was probably my best player on the freshman team. But again, then he turns out to be a 4-time NBA champion, and so I guess sometimes things happen like that.
Coach, we understand that you went to see Loyola play for the national championship in 1963.
Yes.
What do you remember about that Final Four? And rumor has it that you got into trouble for attending those games. Any comments about that?
Well, there's no comments. I just have to tell you the truth. I did leave school, and I don't think anybody knew, including my wife, where I went. I left on a Wednesday and went to the NCAA finals. I'd never had a chance to ever see the NCAA finals. And a good friend of mine, Bill Pfister, who had a Howard Johnson's motel up there, he said, Ron, why don't we go to the Final Four? He said, I got tickets. I said, that'd be great, I'd love to. So I missed school on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then when I got back on Monday, obviously I was in a little trouble. But they kept my wife there teaching, and then they fired me. And that's the way, but I told the superintendent when he fired me, he said, we hate to do this. I said, well, you don't have to feel badly, because I said, I learned more in 3 days there than I would ever learn here about what I want to do, and that's to coach basketball. So then I left and came back to Indiana State to work in 1963 and finish my master's.
How did you eventually make your way to Lawrenceville?
Well, it was just a lot of luck, I guess, because when I was back in summer school after I was fired at Maryville, I was playing a lot with the college players, because I wasn't that far out, and also I played for the Gary Whips, which was a semi-pro team up there, and we'd play in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we'd play the Chicago Bombers, and then there was a Toledo Tacker. So it was a game. I probably made more money playing Friday and Saturday night. I mean, you could make $100. Well, that's $200. And my first my first teaching job, I signed at $3,000. So if you could put a couple, $300-400 in your pocket every other weekend or so, that was pretty good. So anyway, Ken Pritchett, who was a former coach at Lawrenceville, he saw me playing up there, and the last day of the class, you're supposed to stand up and tell people where you're from and where you're teaching and what you're going to do. So in the future, so I had just gotten a draft notice, and I was going to be drafted in the Army out of Terre Haute. Well, at that time, I was, I'd already taught, and I was married, and so Ken went back and told Mr. Dahlhan, who was the former superintendent here, that he found a guy that wanted to coach. And if I remember right, John Brooks had just left and joined the insurance company and the Golden Rule. So there was a head baseball, which was my first love, and when they said head baseball and freshman basketball and freshman football, I never played football in my life because they only had 2 sports at Lawrenceville. They didn't have football. I mean, they didn't have at Glenn they did. I'm sorry. They didn't have any other sports but basketball and baseball. So I took the head baseball job and that's really what I wanted to do, and I wanted to coach freshman basketball. But I met Paul Restivo, and I told him that I'm a student of the game. I've never played, but I'll do you the best job I can. And so they hired me, and then Mr. Dahlhan told me to go take a letter that I've been hired at Lawrenceville and take it to my local draft board in Terre Haute, and that way, they gave me a deferment, and that's the way I got to Lawrenceville. I can still remember running down the hill for the first time to the football. You know, the football was already in the summer, the 2-time summer practice before school started. And I ran down there, and I really didn't know what to expect, but I ran down there with a freshman team, and Coach Restivo took me down and introduced me, and I just talked to him. I didn't do much the first day, but I just talked to him about what to expect and how we're going to do things on the freshman level, and we're going to do things the same as the varsity team. And so that's where I got my start at Lawrenceville.
What can you share with us about your years as an assistant coach here?
Well, my 4 years as an assistant in basketball, I had Greg Ritchie, Bob Montgomery, the 2 Benson's boys, and Brad Crackle, and a lot of really good young freshmen. And you know, that was again, I had talent, and we really had a great freshman team. I think they went over 80 points in 7-minute quarters as freshmen on those times, especially about the first 12 or 13 games. And then Coach Pritchett took Bob Montgomery, and I think the Bensons, and also Greg Ritchie up to the JV team, and then I don't think it was long before they were practicing with the varsity. So those were very good years. That gave me an opportunity to be in a system where I wanted to be. I didn't have to go to the service, and I was coaching 3 sports. So that's what I wanted to do, and it was a very good time for me.
Coach, your team's won 4 state championships here. You have the best win-loss percentage of any high school boys coach in the history of Illinois basketball. Your team's won 68 consecutive games, a record that still stands today. What was your coaching philosophy that made you so successful?
Well, everybody's got to have a philosophy, and of course I did also, but you know, the old saying is that, you know, I didn't score a point or get a rebound for Lawrenceville High School. You know, you can get up on that wagon and say, giddy up, and if there's not any horses attached to the wagon, you're not going anywhere. And same way with basketball. If you don't have some players and you don't have kids that buy into what you're selling, then you're not going to be very good. But I can remember my first job, a varsity job, and we had Dennis Scheidler at the guard. He was only a sophomore, and I think our first, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 23-4 or something like that, my first varsity season. But I think you've got to have a style of your own. I think you've got to get players to trust you. They got to know that you got to compliment them. You got to love them. Yet you got to get on them. You got to get on. You got to get the best out of them. And I think I did a pretty good job at that. But also we had very good players. But you can't be somebody else. I couldn't be a Johnny Wooden. I couldn't be a Red Auerbach. I couldn't be a Hank Iba. You just got to be yourself. But again, they've got to trust you, and you've got to compliment them. Yet you've got to push them till they can't hardly run.
You will go down in history as one of the greatest shooting coaches of all time. Where did you learn the fine details that separate good shooters from great shooters?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Obviously, if you're taking bad shots, you're not going to be a great shooter. So you've got to be able to get open. You've got to know when you're open. You've got to have confidence in your shot. But yet there's a lot of techniques that you've got to go through to become a good shooter. So it's hard to name every trait and that it takes to be a great shooter. Now, we work very hard in techniques. The heel, toe, foot stagger, shooting with a head over the shoulders, not falling back, getting the ball in the shooting pocket, getting people off of you, how to get open. You've got the drive fake, you've got a pass fake, you've got a shot fake. That's the only opportunity that a player with the ball has got to free himself. And then you've got to learn to move without the ball. So there's so many things that that come into attention to detail on shooting off the move, shooting off the dribble, shooting off the pass when it comes to you, and if you're shooting say a three-point shot. So I just can't narrow it down to one or two things, but being smart, knowing when you're open, having confidence in your shot. But I think the number one thing in being a good shooter would have to be your balance. Would have to be your balance. If you're on good balance and you have good techniques, which we try to teach our kids every day in practice, and yet then knowing that they can get open, that they're shooting good shots and not falling backwards and not shooting when they're not open, all those factors come into being a great shooter.
Please share with our museum visitors who were some of your great shooters when you coached at Lawrenceville.
Well, you have to start with Dennis Scheidler. He was the first player I had, and I think he led the state in scoring at 35.8. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, or I guess it's out for everybody to hear, but it's something around 35 points per game. And then let me go through and I'm trying to think. You've got Rick Leasty. Rick Leasty on the 72 and the 74 state championship teams was a very fine shooter. And then you had Jay Scheidler come along, and he was an outstanding shooter, especially from the three-point line, and could.
But let's make it clear, there was no three-point line.
There wasn't a three-point line,
Right.
and so both those last two kids that I named you, if there was a three-point line, then they would have been even more formidable scorers. And then after that, I'd have to think David Brooks. David Brooks went to the Naval Academy, and he had great range. I mean, he could shoot it from a long ways, and he could and shoot very well. In fact, I think he led Navy scoring until the Admiral David Robinson came in. And then going a little farther up into the two back-to-back state championship teams, you'd have to mention both Doug Nowacek and Marty Simmons. Both of those kids averaged 25 points a game in the 82 team. And now you figure that, having 50 points coming out of the dressing room, that was pretty good. As far as a coach, now the thing that we'd have to watch out for is a lot of times there's a little jealousy. You know, when you got 50 points coming out of the dressing room and on 50 points coming from two players on your team, that is really, I'm sure people get a lot of coaching at home. Hey, why do you throw this ball to this guy? Why don't you shoot it once in a while? And you know, you don't have to throw it to Simmons every time. But see, a good coach is going to play to his strengths. You've got to accentuate your strengths, and you've got to minimize your weaknesses and try to hide your weaknesses. And when you do that, then you've got a real chance to win. So jealousy, and that's one thing that I'll have to say, that in the 16 years that I coached varsity at Lawrenceville High School, our kids bought into the fact that everybody had a role to play. You were either a ball handler, you were a defensive player, you were a rebounder, you're a scorer. Now we'd like to have a combination of all of these, but sometimes you don't. But I always thought about the queen bee and the drones. The drones went out and did all the work for the queen bee. Well, some of these other kids that are not great scorers, they're going to have to go get the ball and do all the things they can to get the ball in the hands of the scorers. And so talking about accentuate and strengthen and your strengths and play to your strengths, we had to have the ball in the shooter's hands because we didn't have the great size. So again, that's a philosophy that I wanted to sell. And you know, I'd like to take Jeff Gear for example. I think Jeff Gear at the most averaged like 3 or 4 points a game. Maybe he got 8 on occasion. But then he went to VU and did the very same thing over at Vincennes University and didn't look to shoot. He was a coach on the floor. He didn't make mistakes. He always took care of the ball. He knew what kind of defense the opposition was in, and he just played what he did what he was good at, and that's not make turnovers. And then he got a full scholarship to I think the University of Toledo or Akron, Toledo, and so therefore he got a college scholarship, averaging 4 or 5 points a game. So there again, that's a tribute to him and that's a tribute to our team wanting to join together to do the best and for the greatness of our basketball team.
Let's briefly talk about the state championship teams. We don't want you to compare them. What were some of your special memories coaching these teams to state titles? And I'd like to start by, I remember you told me one time when you first went to Champaign in 1972.
We didn't know how to get to the floor.
Right.
Well, that's not one of my great memories, but I didn't make the meeting the day before. I think they bring some way, I'm gonna blame it on the administration, because they didn't get me the memo. So, you know, it's not always the school I dislike, it was just the principle of the thing. So, no, I'm kidding. But no one told me anything about that. So when we get there, and I'm just watching the games played during the day, and I didn't know how they got the floor. So about the end of the third quarter, then I started taking our team down, and we couldn't get, you know, those little straps that they got down there. We were having to walk through the crowd and go through the tunnel. Well, they said, you can't go this way. I said, well, how in the world do you get to the floor? And they said, you got to go back up to the main concourse, and there's an elevator. So we did do that, and I think we might have been a little late getting to the floor, but we made it. And I always told our team, if we get there, and you have to ask some of the players about this, but I said, we work harder and play harder than most teams. So I said, you know, you've taken a lot of ball from me, you've taken a lot of me on you, but if we get to the state tournament, we're going to win it. And I think so I said, I want you to have that in mind. If we get there, I'm not saying we can't, but if we get there, we'll win it. And it came out that we had a 14-1 record at Champaign, and it still makes me mad to think about losing that game. And then we finished, I think, in '76. Let's see, '76. That was, I think Scheidler. That's the last time of the third place game. I'm not sure, but anyway, I think Scheidler had 46 or 7 points in the third place game. But that was one of the memories. What was the question again?
Let's talk about some of the state championship teams.
Okay.
Don't really want to compare them, but just some special memories coaching those teams to titles.
Obviously, you got to remember Mike Lockhart's shot he had a very good game, and when we beat Bounce Meridian in the final game, and there's probably others. I'd have to let's see. That was such a whirlwind. I remember Marty scoring every point in the last half in the game, and but the thing I remember most is that our players kept their, keep your eye on the prize. The prize is not, whether we win by 1 or 10, we've got another game. Stay hitched, come give your best, and we'll win it. And we did win 4 out of the 5 times we were there. So that's been since '83. What's that been? 28 years. Mercy. See, I never was very good in math, but I missed it by 10. But that's been a long time ago, and since then I had 15 years at Indiana University, and then I've had 13 now where I've been retired. So obviously my mind isn't as good as it once was. Not that it ever was very good.
Let's talk a little bit about the 68-game winning streak. Did you ever discuss this with your players? Did you feel any pressure? And were there any close calls where the streak could have ended sooner?
Did I talk to the players? Of course I talked to the players. Maybe not the first year. Toward the end, we got a chance to go undefeated, yes. But then, after we won in '82, the pressure, there was a lot of pressure, but no more than what I put on myself. The pressure I put on myself, it was quite a bit. when you choose to coach and you got an opportunity to do something real special, you know, I told our players, I said, you got a chance to do something that you'll be able to tell your grandkids about. And it's been 30 years later, and I don't know if there's any grandkids out of these players yet, but I'm sure there will be. And if no one steps up and beats that record, then I'll be a prophet. Usually I'm a total loss, but this will make me a prophet if our players do be able to tell their grandkids about it and this streak continues. Now, was there pressure? Of course there was pressure. Every time you walk downtown, there was pressure on our players because everyone said, hey, are we going to win tonight? You know, this. Well, only if our players could stay hitched and keep their mind to give the best effort and not get cocky and not get complacent and come out and give me a night's work every night out to try to get better, whether it be defensively, whether it be blocking out, whether it be passing, whatever the situation called for. I always said that you've got to put your players in simulated situations where they'll not be surprised at anything that happens. So, I mean, I try to keep our players up on against zones, against presses, against whatever, how we're going to help off the ball if they had a big man. I'm not saying we did it greatly all the time, but we never were surprised by something that another team would bring forth and try to surprise us with, whether it be a triangle and two, a box and one. I think that's a responsibility of the coach to keep their players, put them in a simulated situation where they'll never be surprised. So, yes, there was pressure. Yes, I think it takes a lot of luck to win back-to-back state championships. And I think your next question, not that I'm a mind reader, but I have looked at the set of questions that you have, and that would be, was there any chances that we could have lost during the time? State that question again if you
Were
would.
there close calls along the way? And two come to mind, one being where Novsek hit a shot from maybe half court to win a game at
Right.
Salem.
Right.
And then I also know in '83 you were behind in the championship game of the regional playing Mount Carmel at Mount Carmel.
Yes. And, well, let's take, that was over at Salem, and Doug Novosek was a senior and Marty Simmons was a junior, and we were behind, and we were 1 point behind, and we had the ball out of bounds, and we had to go the length of the floor with about 3 or 4 seconds left. So we have a timeout, and I tell Doug, I said, Doug, we're going to get you a screen, you're going to circle around, we're going to try to get you the ball, and I said, I don't want you to take any more than one dribble. If you miss a shot, miss the bank board, I don't care. I think he let it go about 2 steps behind the center line. And the ball's in the air, and I started walking. My former student teacher was coaching Salem, and I walked down there, and I'm ready to shake his hand and say, hey, you beat us, nice game. And I get about 3 steps from him, and that ball goes through the basket, and he just falls to the floor. He's laying on the floor, and I reached down there, and Jimmy Corona was his name, and I said, Jimmy, nice game. He's laying on the floor, and I shake his hand and just keep walking. So that was an occasion where we were very lucky to win. Another one.
Back to that game, did you have a discussion with the timekeeper?
Oh, yes. In fact, yes, I about forgot about that because I went to the timekeeper and I said, now look, we have been, I know your job is to start that clock, and I also know you're a Salem fan. I said, now, when we inbound this ball, I'm going to come right down here and stand right beside you, and I want to make sure that you turn the clock on when the ball hits the player's hands, not before the player. I don't want you starting the clock before the ball is inbounded. I mean, I've been, kind of, I don't know the word for it, but not cheated, but guys take liberty with their job and turn the. So I made sure that he turned the clock on exactly when the ball hit the hand, and it was a fair shake. I want a fair shake on the road, and he took 2 dribbles and let it fly, and it hit the bottom of the net. Now that was the closest we came to losing, and possibly we should have lost. He could shoot that another 100 times and maybe not hit one. So that was another time was at Robinson. We were playing Detroit Southwestern. We were behind two field goals, I think, and we had a little timeout, and I don't know, I think we tried to double team a little bit, kind of in our man-to-man, leave and go trap the ball and rotate our weak side guy up and possibly steal the ball or disrupt them, or maybe get them to moving a little faster than they wanted to. I'm not sure, they were fast all night, so I don't know if they want to go in faster, but Ernie Ho hits 2 jump shots from the right side in front of our bench. That pulls us out, and we beat Detroit Southwestern in a game that Denny Scheidler scheduled when he was the coach up at Lincoln Trail Junior College. Now the Mount Carmel game, that slips my mind a little bit. So, but we did have a few close calls, which you got to, because again, it takes luck to go 68-0.
We're closing in on the end, Coach. I have 4 or 5 more questions.
Oh, just 4 or 5? Okay, go ahead.
Lawrenceville always seemed to play with the swagger. Did that come from you?
No, I don't know if I've ever had a swagger. I mean, I think that, I guess that's a show of confidence. I think our players were confident after you win, and I don't mean win so much, but after you, when they knew that they went on the floor, they were prepared. They knew that they had worked awfully hard, and there was no use letting somebody not as good as them sneak up and beat them. Now, if you win 34 in a row, I think you'd be pretty confident coming back in next year when you got everybody but one player back, that you're going to be pretty good. Now, whether that's a swagger, I think our kids played with confidence. I think they played together. I think they decided that they were going to win it again, so they could tell their grandkids. So, no swagger, no swagger, you know.
Would you please mention some of the assistant coaches or junior high coaches who helped to keep Lawrenceville basketball on the map? I'm not going to say put Lawrenceville
No,
on the
I
map because
understand.
it already
Listen, they
was.
deserve a lot of credit, and you know, when I start naming them now, I know I'm going to forget some, but I mean, just think that program down there in the junior high, Tut Jones, and Eddie Gardner and Phil Osmond. I remember they did very well with Marty Simmons in the 8th grade. They they lost to Carbondale in a junior high tournament, but they were very competitive and moved right to the final game. I remember Eddie Elliott coming out of Eastern Illinois, and then we had Clarence Reedy and Jeff Trickett. They were with me for a lot of years and did some very good work. And I'm trying to think just a minute. There was a guy named Larry Wagner from Sullivan, Indiana. He was with us for a while. Rick Hurtis and George Grubbs were assistants for a long while. I don't know, I'm forgetting some of them, but listen, they all made large contributions to the success of Lawrenceville High School. And I just like to put that on the record.
Talk about some of your coaching rivals who are also great coaches, and what gym, besides your own here in Lawrenceville, was a real challenge to win at?
Well, I wouldn't consider our own gym a challenge. Hell, we just went out and took over at our place, you know, pretty much. So, I would say Olney. Ron Heron was a very good coach, and they were hard to beat. They were hard to beat at our place, let alone, but they were very hard to beat at Olney. Gunnar Wyman, when he was over at Ben Sims, he was a fine coach in his own right, and I remember I think they wanted to shut Denny Scheidler down, so I think Denny only got 20-some points that night, but we beat them about 15, and but Gunnar was always tough to play against. And then we had, I don't know if we had trouble, but Tom Welch, I guess it was Tom Welch at Flora. They always played us very hard and very tough, but we seemed to have a lot of success against them also. I know that it shouldn't have been a rival, but I remember Rich Heron when they were at Benton, when they were the #1 team in the South, and we kind of put them on them up there at the state tournament in the very first game. So I think we beat them we had them about 18 at halftime. But, and then another great win for us, I remember let me see here, this must have been 76, Rick, you can help me here. We beat Collinsville and Thornridge in the same day. So, to win the Carbondale Holiday Tournament. Now, you think of, Collinsville and Thornridge got 5,000 students in their high school, which is big as our town or bigger, and we beat both of them the same day, and that was very satisfying for me as a coach, knowing whether you're in Class A or Double A, you step on the floor, and you're gonna have a ball game if you play the Indians.
You surely must have some great stories that are funny that you could share, or maybe some stories about some referees.
Well, things are not real funny on game night. I mean, I was pretty well wired up, ready to do some battle. But let's see, something funny. Well, Jerry Turner comes to my mind as an official. He was a little old good buddy of mine. People didn't give Jerry a lot of respect. He's hard working, never stole a dime. And I remember his employer, he worked on a milk truck. He said he's never been late and never stolen a dime, and he worked for 40 years. But anyway, I remember I got Jerry aside one time. We were having a drink, and I said, I don't agree with what assistant coach Reedy said about you. And he said, well, what did he say? I said, well, I don't want to tell you. And he said, come on, tell me. And I said, well, Jerry, he said, I don't agree with him now, but he said, you're too little to be a man and too big to be a monkey. And he said that, and he said, I'm going to give him a technical. I said, no, you can't carry this over. So anyway, Clarence stood up for the first time, and Jerry was refereeing the JV game, and he started, hey, Jerry, he started to say something, and Jerry said, that'll be a technical. And he did it upside down. And he said, what in the world are you doing that for? And he said, exit stage right. And there was a stage up on the right side. He said, exit stage right, you're out of here. So anyway, he kicked Reedy out of the game, and Reedy didn't have any idea why he did that. And I said, afterwards, I was talking to him, I said, you took advantage of him. I said, I shouldn't have told you that. He said, no, he had no right to say it. And I said, Jerry, I said, you gave the technical upside down. I said, that isn't the proper way to do it. He said, he didn't deserve one right side up. So anyway, that was one of the refereeing stories that I remember. Another time, it's not when Jerry sang the national anthem for us there and I said, Jerry, would you mind singing the anthem? And Jerry could sing a little. He could carry a tune. He always a big Al Jolson fan. And so I got Jerry to sing the anthem. I said, now Jerry, you walk to the scores bench and I'll hand you the mic. And I said, now you got to wait on the band. Well, Jerry got there and just grabbed the mic, oh, say, and then the band leader tried to catch up with him. So anyway, that was another funny story. And then Bob Friels was an official out of Centralia, and we had a team, I think, pretty well handled. We had them 22 points after the first half. So coming out the second half, he said, Ron, come here. He said, he was always noted for calling traveling. They called him the traveling man. He said, look, he said, you're beating this team bad. He said, I won't call any travels if you don't call any timeouts. I said, okay, you got it. So he didn't call any more travels, and I never called any more timeouts, and the game got over sooner. I don't remember the final score, but that was a couple of funny things. I remember I was a freshman coach when I first got here, and we were down in Albion, and a ball bounced over to me, and we weren't playing very well, and I didn't think we were getting really a fair shake from the officials. So I took the ball and I just hooked it up over my head. Well, from the side baskets, they'd swing them up. Well, that ball went up and caught between the backboard and the basket. It stuck up there, and so I got ejected from the game. So when I threw that ball up there, and I looked up there, and it was stuck between the goal and the basket, so the official didn't think that was too funny, so I was ejected. And I tried to call a timeout from the popcorn stand. I'm out there, and the kid was running down there and looking out, so anyway, they called timeout, and they started to come running out there in the hallway, and he brought my freshman team back, said, you can't go out there. So those are some of the funny things that happened that I can remember.
Ron, how has the high school game changed since your high school coaching days?
Well, I remember when Rick played and Jay played and these guys, I don't think they had a three-point shot. So you give us the three-point shot, and I think we were outstanding shooters. All of our kids can shoot. In fact, Terry Reed, who was one of my friends who passed away this last year, he said, when I got the job at Lawrenceville, he said even the PE kids could shoot. He said, you know, he said they wouldn't dress out, but they'd be standing over on the side in their clothes shooting the ball. So anyway, I would say that the three-point shot. Now they've got this little hoop in front of the basket. If you got to be outside that little hoop to take a charge. If you're in that little hoop U shape under the basket, then the foul's on you. Those are a couple things. I'm sure I don't remember where they had the count on the dribble.
What about attitudes and work ethics?
Well, AAU has taken over. The coach doesn't have the same control over the kids that he had back when I was coaching. And I think it's a shame because these AAU teams, these shoe sponsors and shoe companies give them all the money they want. They dress them out in the top coaching or playing long sleeve and pants, and they got bags and they travel and they got money. So I think the change is that no one, but I don't think the attention to detail and the fundamentals are the same. They just go and play. They like to run up and down the floor. They like to play. I don't think there's any coaching at the AAU level. This guy has got a pocket full of money from one of the shoe sponsors, and he's coaching the team, and then he's also probably an agent. He'll probably, well, you give me $100 and I'll get you this guy's phone number. I think it's just a bunch of bunk, and the attention to fundamentals I don't think are the same. The players might be bigger, stronger, faster, and they might be better, but I don't think you see kids drive down the floor and take a double pump, spin shot, throw it up, and it's all for if they can make Sports Center. So, but I really think there's been a decline in some of the fundamentals taught, and the AAU coaches have way too much influence over the young people today.
Last question, Ron, and thank you for your time today.
Thank goodness.
What advice would you have for young coaches today?
Don't get in it for the money. There's no money in it. Get in it because of your love. Try to be yourself. You can't be one of the great coaches. You can't be Red Auerbach. And be yourself. Get you a philosophy. Have a philosophy that you know that you believe in. Don't be a man-to-man coach this week, and then you see a 1-3-1 zone on TV, and then you're going to be a 1-3-1 coach, and then you're going to try to play 94 feet and guard people when you can't guard them from 30 feet. So when you double team and try to play 94 feet, you better be special, and you better have a lot of quickness, and you better have a big guy back there swatting them away at the end. So be yourself, have your own philosophy. Don't get in it for the stipend or whatever little they pay you. Get in it for the love of the game, the love of coaching. Try to.
We're here in Lawrenceville, Illinois, with three former Lawrenceville High School basketball players who are all state champions. We have Tim Leasty, who is on the 82 and 83 state championship teams that won 68 straight games. We have Darren Blair, who was on those same two ball clubs. And we have Rick Leasty, who played on the 1972 and 1974 state champions and later played at the University of Illinois. Gentlemen, when did you fall in love with playing basketball?
Well, it had to be at an early age, because when, of course, not so much for these guys when I was growing up, that's about all you had was basketball. You know, we learned to play basketball. Of course, I was going to school at St. Francisville at the time. And so that was about the only thing you had to do in St. Francisville was play basketball.
You mentioned St. Francisville, and if memory serves me correctly, there was a bit of controversy about your family moving to Lawrenceville. Could you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, we moved to Lawrenceville actually in the middle of my freshman year, in I believe it was in December. And we got up here and started playing for Lawrenceville, and we were taken in front of the IHSA board, claims that we taken things and everything like that. We did. IHSA found us innocent. We started playing basketball for Lawrenceville, and the rest is history.
You two, on the Tim and Darren, at what age do you remember that you wanted to play for Lawrenceville High School?
From the time we was little kids. When Tim moved to town, that was I was one of the first people he met.
Yeah, we lived in the same neighborhood, and that was the same way with us. That's all we did back then was baseball and basketball.
We wanted to be Rick Leasty at that time, and then 2 years later, we wanted to be Jay Scheidler. And, you know, every little kid wanted to play for the varsity team.
Yeah, we were always at every game, and that's what you want to do. You want to be at Lawrenceville Indian and win games and play for Coach Felling. So that's kind of the way it was.
You've already covered the next question I had here, but what was it like to play for Coach Felling, and just how demanding was he?
It was tough.
Yeah, he was real demanding. I mean, it was more fundamental. I think a lot of coaches at the varsity level, and just in my experience nowadays, I'm a high school official, but it seems like they think that you should know fundamentals when you get there. But that's not really true. Ron, we did fundamentals. We'd have 3-hour practices, and we worked 2 hours on fundamentals. And then we'd start working on who we were playing next, and that kind of thing. So he was really fundamental and really demanding.
His intensity and attention to detail was greater than any other person that I've worked for, any of my bosses that I've ever had. I mean, he was very intense, and he wanted to get things done the right way the first time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Was Coach a better practice coach or a better game coach?
Well, I think it was both. I mean, the attention to detail in practice, that same attention to detail was in the games. I mean, once he taught you everything in practice, when he got you in a game, he could outcoach any coach in the conference. He knew when to work the referees, he knew when to work the crowd, and he knew what to tell the guys in the huddle.
I agree. I mean, the preparation before the game made the game night and a night off, and
Yeah.
and
You know, we always looked at it as a night off when we had a game. That was time to go out and just,
have
you
fun.
know, we
and
could have
play.
fun and be kids, you know. But I think he's about the same. I mean, it's a preparation for anybody. We had our second team would learn all the offenses and defenses of whoever we were playing. We were playing Salem on Friday night. These guys had to learn offenses, where Hurtis and Groves would go out and scout, and then he would make these guys run those offenses and defenses, and then play against us. So then those guys had to learn how many offenses
20
or
some
defenses.
different teams, yeah.
So and he would get on those guys if they didn't do it right.
And then he'd get on them when we beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened a few times too.
It's said that great players are made in the summertime. Did you guys have summer routines to help you become great players, and how many hours did you practice shooting each day?
Well, yeah, we practiced all the time during the summertime. It was, you know, most guys back in '72 and '74, you know, most guys got to go to the gym and play. Every night we was at the city park out there, we played on asphalt. And we'd play till dark. After dark, they finally put lights in, so everything, you know, you practice year round. You know, like Coach Felling talked earlier about AAU. You know, we played against our team practices and everything through the summer, and we played year round.
I think a lot of times in the summer, I don't know if it was legal back then, but we'd have a couple times a week that the coach would say, okay, we're having an organized open
We had
gym.
open gym
gyms,
on Monday and
basically.
Thursday.
But he would bring in the older players too a lot of times, the guys that already graduated, and just bring in And he'd bring in Lincoln Trail and Wabash Valley guys that were out there over the summer, and we played all the time in the summer, and it was never really, it was never
It was
organized
not
practice, it was
practice,
just an open
games,
gym,
yeah.
and whoever showed up, and most of us usually did, so he was, did everything he could at that time that was legal to get away.
This
I
next,
think so.
the next question is for you, Rick, specifically. I remember you telling me one time that when it was time for you to decide a college and deal with the recruiters, it was really an easy decision because you were undefeated in the assembly hall and Illinois was a clear choice. And how did Coach prepare you to play at that level?
Well, a lot of it had to do with mental preparation. To me, a lot of guys aren't really mentally prepared to even as a freshman to go live away from home in a college environment, let alone have to practice in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and then try to get your study. So I think a lot of it was more mental going away to school than anything like that.
Who would be some of the lower level coaches that you wouldn't want to be overlooked that helped you, that helped form the winning tradition that we have? Some of the guys at the lower levels.
In today's game, or
No,
back
when
then?
we played,
You were playing?
When you were
Rick?
playing.
Oh, wow, Clarence Reed, Jeff Cricket, I mean, I had bad ankles all through high school, and they kept me on the floor, wrapping ankles every night. Eddie Wagner, those three were the main ones that I had, and they kept me on the floor with tape and Jezik, the cream. Oh, horse limit, so yeah.
What about Dr. Kirkwood?
Well, we played at Dr. Bob's house a lot. He put up a goal because Billy Anthony lived right down the street from him. And we'd go over there and play at his house a lot of times. And he came to every practice when we were juniors and seniors and would ask everyone first off if they had any injuries or if anyone felt bad. And if you felt bad, you were gonna get a shot of penicillin right there in Pizza Hut or in the locker room or wherever you might be. And he wanted to make sure everybody stayed healthy and was ready to play on game nights.
You two are going to talk about some of your assistants.
I think the Grubbs and Hurtis did a great job. It was after Trickett left, after our sophomore year, Trickett retired, and he was the JV coach, he was Felling's main guy. And Grubbs and Hurtis both stepped in, Rick Hurtis and George Grubbs, and I thought they did a great job of what Felling wanted them to do as far as working with an individual kid at times, or Hurtis was a jump shooter, he knew how to shoot the basketball, so those guys did a great job, I think, when we were younger. They were kind of extensions of Ron, they really did everything he wanted.
When we started in 7th grade with Eddie Gardner, he had us running the offenses that were the base offenses of what we were gonna have in high school.
Yeah.
And he taught us the same priorities with defense. He showed us the same films of Indiana University playing their half-court man when they had their undefeated team. And then Phil Osmond carried it over as 8th graders when we played there, and then when we got into high school.
Can't leave out Ed and Phil, but Eddie, he was our first coach when we were in 6th grade, and we made the 7th grade team, Darren and I, and he had us running around chairs, and we were in shape. I mean, you really did it right.
Tim and Darren first, please share with our museum visitors just some special memories you have of your unbeaten run.
Go ahead.
I don't know. It's the culmination of growing up wanting to do what my older brother did. Always wanted to play, and being at Lawrenceville Indian, and then actually getting, we got super sectional all 4 years that we were in high school. And a lot of schools never get out of the regional, so that was something that it was state or bust for us. I mean, we weren't gonna hold back, and it all come together with Marty and Doug in '82, and they had everybody they needed as far as, I was a good defensive player, we had good guards, we had good backups, guys off the bench. It just kind of came to a head, and Ron was at the pinnacle of his coaching career, really. I mean, he was really showing what he could do, and he had the tools to do it, and it just, I was glad I was a part of that, for me.
I remember seeing those crowds of people at 4 o'clock in the afternoon lined up out to the street waiting to get in, and the gates didn't open until 6:15. And people showing up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get in line to get tickets when tickets we're not gonna go on sale till 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and stand in the school all day long.
Yeah,
And when you go on the road, it'd be the same way. Full houses everywhere you went during the JV game, not just in the varsity game.
Yeah,
And the fact that the whole community came together, and it was different than anywhere that you can imagine. I mean, they treated it like an NBA team, and the only thing that was important was if we won on Friday night, and we did.
What about some special memories you have from your days, Rick, of the winning the 72 and the 74 state championships, first as a sophomore, then as a senior?
Pretty much the same as these guys, packed houses everywhere, I played with Bill Hydrator, we were the only two underclassmen in 72, and then we got it again in 74, so it just, we played in front of a lot of people. You walk down the streets in Lawrenceville, everybody knew your name, not just Rick Leasty, but they knew Bill Hydrator, Stanley Dixon, Tim Wolf, I mean, they knew everybody on the team, and everybody showed up for the games, so just played in front of a lot of good people.
Rick, you played with Jay Scheidler. He could not make it here today, but I know through the years you and Jay have become good friends. Can you talk about Jay a little bit? And just at his days in Lawrenceville?
Yeah, Jay and I, especially in high school, of course we played basketball together, but we really never got close till after we graduated. And I've been down a couple of times to see him in Lexington, and he's come up and visited a little bit. But he was a super individual in high school, quiet. He wouldn't say nothing unless he was talked to, but man, I loved to watch him shoot. He was the purest shooter I think I've seen. I know Doug Novosek and Marty Simmons came along, but Jay Scheidler, if he was across the 10-second line, he could make it. He was just a good, quiet kid, and I'll tell you what, I think a lot of Jay.
And then you two guys played with a couple of other quote-unquote superstars, Marty and Doug. Could you talk about those guys a little bit?
Well, they were outstanding players. I mean, heck, they were all state. And Marty was Mr. Basketball, and with the most votes in the history, to this day, he got more votes than any other candidate's ever gotten. And
yeah, it was a lot of fun because they never rowdy, they would never bash anybody. It was a team effort. They were always, let's win this thing, and they weren't any different than we were. They just happened to have a little more talent. I don't know if you want to call it that. We worked hard. We all worked hard, but it was a great time playing with those guys because you just knew that you did your job. I had a job to do, and if I did my job that night, I knew they would. And so it made it so much more fun. It made it easy. I don't want to say easy. It made it more fun. I know that because we could go out and like I said, we did what we were taught in practice. We did our job. Then we knew that good things were going to happen. So it was a lot of fun playing with those two.
Okay, Tim and Darren first again. Who was your biggest rival when you were in high school? Who did you want to beat the most?
Well, Red Hill was always a rival, I guess, but
beat
and nothing. Red Hill played great whenever we played Red Hill. When we went to Red Hill, they played hard. They played great. We wanted to beat Madison, I think, more than anything. They beat us our freshman and sophomore years. Marty was a freshman. He started varsity as a freshman. And they beat him freshman and sophomore year, 80, 81. And then 82, we played
Vandalia.
We played Vandalia in the Super, and then so we didn't see Madison. But in 83,
we got Madison.
We played Madison again. So
they made a statement that they were going to stop us too.
Yeah, beat us 3 in a row and that kind of thing. And so we were really headhunting for Madison. We were hoping we could meet them in the Super.
We wanted to beat everybody because we didn't want to lose. We didn't want to go to practice after a loss because we'd done that as freshmen and sophomores and didn't get out of there until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and we didn't want to do it as juniors.
Or how about get home after a basketball game and
practice? Yeah.
He says, don't put your clothes on, put your warm-up jerseys back on.
Put your tissues on.
We're going back to the gym.
Did that happen frequently?
A couple times.
If you got beat or you had a bad night, but we didn't do that in juniors and seniors.
Our senior year against Florida, remember they sold tickets early, conference game. We get over there, a lot of people didn't get in because they sold tickets at 3 o'clock instead of when they were supposed to. And we won by 7. And we got after the game, Ron said, don't put your clothes on, don't get in the shower, put your warm-ups back on. We drove back to Lawrenceville and ran. And so, I mean, I don't know if you get away with that nowadays or not, but it was, we did it, and that's what it was.
What about you, Rick? Who were some of the big rivals when you played?
Well, I hate to get into this conference thing. I don't care for the conference setup right now, but the North Egyptian Conference back when we played, Mount Carmel, Fairfield, Carmine, Salem, Flora, Alney, we had probably the premier conference in this area. And I think not only the type of practice we did and the way we played, but the type of competition we had through the regular season is what prepared us for a state tournament. I think the NEC was probably the best in this area.
So Illinois, I think,
You were on the very first team that ever played in the single A state tournament. You were on the first team that played when they had 2 state tournaments. Do you remember going to Champaign or entering that tournament and maybe not having any kind of idea about what to expect? I mean,
Yeah. You walk out on the floor and not see walls, on the side of the gym, and they turn the lights out and all you have is the floor. I mean, it's pretty overwhelming the first time you walk in there. And but Coach Felling, we like he said back in, we didn't want to give a plug to Arby's, but he kept us. We had Arby's before the game, and we sit there and he kept us down to earth. I mean, it's floor's the same size, the goal's at 10 feet. He just made us keep our feet on the ground.
before that season, did you have any idea that you could possibly be a state champion? I mean,
Not really. I think, we were, I can't even remember our records back then, but, we just broke 20 games, I think, our freshman year and everything. So we just played hard, and I think everything just fell together as the year went on, our sophomore year. Everybody started playing at the right time, and it was nothing that we had planned on. It was just something that was unexpected and well-deserved, I think.
this question is for Tim and Darren again. How conscious were you of the winning streak? Did you feel pressure because of it? And are you surprised that the streak is still a record today? It says here that the Quincy Notre Dame girls are at 53 and are very aware of your record.
Well, I don't think there was much pressure until the second year. The first year it was like it was in '72, I think. We were like, we were juniors. We knew we could get there, but it's like, wow, we're here already. We couldn't hardly find a gym, But in '83, Ron put pressure on us, and we knew it. And we had some pressure. Every night was a different night, and everybody's always trying to knock you off, and it could happen at any time. You couldn't let your guard down. So we had to be really conscious of everything we did, and it got to be a lot of pressure. You could see it. WTHI came back and did interviews with us in
That is a
82 and
television
83.
station in Terre Haute,
Terre
correct?
Haute television station. They did interviews mid-season of '82 after we won, then mid-season of '83 and after we won in '83, and you could see on everybody's faces the pressure, if that's possible.
Everybody was a little
see,
edgy, yeah.
and we were all bright and bushy-tailed in the first interview, and then by the time the last one was hit, we were just like, oh, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, it was a job, and there was a whole lot of people that said, I don't know how I made it through that.
Yeah.
So
At some point, I think everyone said, I don't want to play anymore.
in the end, when you finally won that second state championship, it was probably a relief.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah, we were. It's sad because you don't want to leave. I don't want to get emotional,
But it was over.
it's over. But man, it was a relief.
Yeah.
What a relief.
And then again, are you surprised that the record still stands?
Yeah, I
It's been-
sure am. I know it got, there's some teams that got close a couple times, and some people say that, Class 2A back then didn't compare with 1A. Well, I think they're crazy. We played a lot of 1A teams and
We played a lot of 2A teams.
and beat them just like we did the 2A teams. So, yeah, it was tough no matter what.
Coach Felling was talking earlier about a game at Salem when Doug Novsek hit from beyond half court to keep the streak alive. You guys remember that
Oh
game?
yeah, sure do.
Is that the closest you feel like you ever came to not winning?
Well, that one, and then there was the
Before the streak ever started, in the first weekend of the season, we were down 1 point with no time on the clock, and Doug Nosek made a one-on-one.
The Danville, yeah,
And the
Or
Tiger Class.
there would have been no streak.
yeah. that
The
was-
the first weekend of the year, we played Danville High, and they had us down, and Doug came up and shot a jump shot with less than a second to go and was fouled, Danville thought they'd won, and the referee had a foul, and he made both free throws with no time. And then the time up at,
Well, then Lincoln Trail College.
Lincoln
was
Trail,
playing a team.
Ernie stole the inbounds pass and laid it in, actually, to win the game with
Against Detroit Southwestern.
Detroit Northwestern.
Northwestern, yeah, they were keen on Doug Nosek.
Right.
We were down 1, and Ernie hit a shot at the buzzer, and up at Lincoln Trail College, and it was a couple of exhibition games that brought 2 teams from Detroit in they were looking. Lincoln Trail was looking at these guys to maybe recruit, and one team played Robinson and one team played us. And I think Robinson got smoked, and Ernie ended up.
They had a winning streak going of their own. They'd won the Michigan State Championship.
Yeah.
And they'd had an undefeated streak going too.
And so Ernie hit a shot at the buzzer to win that one. That was pretty close. I think those
Yeah.
3 are the ones I remember anyway.
I can remember my first trip to Lawrenceville. It was in 1975, and we drove over here, and there was a ticket line from the front door to the Moose, and it was an incredible atmosphere. And just take turns and describe what it was like to play a home game in those days.
Well, I think my senior year, we had a guy that played the drums, and I can't remember his name. And we would be in the locker room, and like I said, I can't remember the guy's name. But you'd hear the drums start playing. And then when you run out on the floor, I mean, it was almost deafening. You know, Lawrenceville on 3 sides, and then you had the visiting team's little corner over here, you know. So, I mean, it was, it got your heart pumping quick when you come out of the locker room. But when we first started hearing the drums play, we knew it was time to get out and perform. So it was a good feeling running out there.
Darren?
Like we said earlier, the gym was gonna be packed every night, you knew it. And the fans were gonna be behind you. 95% of them were gonna be Lawrenceville fans. It was gonna be a full, and people did come from all over. And
Yeah, it was literally all over, just to see those teams that basically failing from the time he got there till the time he left. It was, I mean, even in the times between 74 and 82, they were sold out, but then they were really intense when those teams that they knew, any team that through there could have went to state. We had teams and, you know, that Willie McKinney and those guys played on 79, 80, 78, 79, 80, those teams could have very well, they went to Super a couple years in a row. So it was really cool because the whole town seemed like the whole town was in the gym that night. It was like a rock star experience almost. I mean, everybody, you know.
everybody was
loved it.
for the team. Everyone
Yeah.
supported the team.
Yeah, really neat.
This is the last question he has, and I just ask you again one at a time. And Tim, I'll start with you. I know you are an assistant coach or involved with the program now. What advice would you have for a Lawrenceville player today?
Well, I think first of all, be fundamental. I think that's kind of gone by the wayside. I'm an IHSA official now. I have been for 19 seasons, and I see a lot of bad basketball. I don't see fundamentals in kids anymore. Lawrenceville has Coach Bishop out here now. I am helping. I'm a volunteer assistant, and we try to work on fundamentals and getting kids to understand that you don't have to be a jump shooter, or you don't have to be the best player on the team. Just go and complete your role. If you've got a role in a game, if you're a guard, if you block out well and can rebound, if you're a defensive specialist, whatever, play hard and just do what you're good at. And that'll help your team win because it's not an individual sport, it's a team sport. And I think kids get past that sometimes, wanting to score all the points, wanting to be flashy. You don't need flashy, you just need hard work.
Darren, your advice for a young Lawrenceville player?
They need to learn to play hard and play with enthusiasm and have attention to detail. If they want to have a chance to do some of the things down the road that maybe get the opportunity that we had, which was we were all lucky to have that opportunity.
Rick?
Pretty pretty much the same as these guys, you know, I mean, all they gotta do is go out and look in the trophy case, look on the wall, and you can see what hard work does. I think, you know, of course, it helps to have a good coach, like I said, fundamentals and good attitude, but I could say a couple of sayings that Felling used to say, but I don't know if I can say that stuff right here. But yeah, you know, you gotta have good players, you gotta have good coaches, and everybody play their role.
Anything else any of the three want to say?
I've got one thing to say. I know you let Coach Felling talk about some funny things that happened.
Yeah.
I've got two that I'd like to mention. Chuck McGahee, Gooch, you know, I was junior, he was a senior, and he couldn't throw the ball in the ocean one night at practice, and Felling gets mad and walks out of practice, and we're standing there, don't know what to do. And pretty soon he comes in with a step ladder, sets it up by the goal, and tells Chuck, go up there, and Chuck drops it through, and Felling said, that's an easy game, throws the ladder up, practice goes on. But I don't know if you all remember Pete Swanson?
I know
And,
Pete.
He made a bet that Lawrenceville would win the state tournament in '72. Well, he pushed a peanut down the floor of the Lawrenceville High School gym because he lost his bet. So Pete Swanson,
Yeah.
he made good on his bet.
Yeah, sure did.
Peanut Pete.
Mhm, Yep.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Just one thing, Coach used to refer to a lot of old sayings, like it is to me, it's up to me. It's, be quick, but don't hurry. And stuff like that, and I know the fundamentals Coach teaches you about basketball. It seems like, even in business today, fundamentals, hard work, attention to detail. And I use that in my everyday, life as a businessman, so it carries over. He's a pretty smart guy.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks very
Thanks,
much.
thanks a lot.
Thanks, sir.